Hi, I'm Skip Schwink. Welcome to the Sun King Podcast. In 1995, I moved to Los Angeles for the third time to try to make it in the entertainment industry. These are my stories of working with the biggest artists in the world. And I also partied my ass off the entire time.
This is where it all ends. Sun King, baby. Let me take you by the hand. Oh, Sun King, honey. We can rule like Christ's land. I'm a Sun King, baby, yeah, yeah. With you I share my trouble.
Why am I starting on my third attempt moving to Los Angeles? Because the first two were a bit of a disaster. But out of one of those first two trips, I did befriend a man who went on to become one of the biggest movie directors in the world, total studio director. And at the time in 95, when I was going back, he was just beginning that journey. And he really kicked the door open for me because he introduced me to a man we'll refer to as my mentor from here on out. And as we go along, I'm going to talk about the celebrities and say their names and all that stuff and just name drop like crazy. But the people behind the scenes, friends and stuff like that, I'm not really going to say any names. I don't know. I don't make anybody mad. I don't want to call anybody out. I don't think anybody would. This is all innocent, not too much controversy, but a lot of great stories. But when he introduced me to this guy, my mentor, he was the owned the biggest music video production company in the world. In Los Angeles. Now, there was about a handful of other big companies that were competition, and to put it in perspective, they would do about 30 to 50 videos a year. My mentor's company did 70 or more, and I'm talking like Madonna, Whitney Houston, Prince, U2, top of the game, across the board. And this man took me under his wings and just, shaped me, taught me about the industry. Helped me out in so many ways, and we became buddies. I mean, we really hit it off. He was from Maryland. I'm originally from Maryland, and we just became friends. His wife was great. We all got along great. I used to hang out at their house. He lived on the beach in Malibu. I always loved his house because his front door was curved. It was like this weird brass kind of thing looking, but I'm like, your front door is like curved. And it was a large door. It was the coolest thing in the world. It was beachfront. We used to go over there and hang out with celebrities on his deck and just drink and, play board games into the night. It was crazy. I remember one 4th of July sitting at his house, sitting on the beach, and we were watching these just amazing fireworks off these couple of barges that were just off the coast of Malibu. And we found out, these were fireworks like in the city, like you go to these are the event fireworks. So where everybody get together, we're going to go see the fireworks. This was it happening in front of us we didn't know. And we did find out that it was Barbra Streisand's fireworks for her party. So it was the fireworks for everybody at her party, and by default, the residents of Malibu. And it was amazing. And it was just like that all the time. Stuff like that just went down all the time. And he got me on sets as PA. He also liked my writing. I had written a script before I moved to LA that time, and I sold it. It never got made. It was just this action wannabe kind of Reservoir Dogs on the Road thing. And I think they said Emilio Estevez was looking at directing it. I don't even know if that was true, but I made a few bucks. And he liked it, so he had me writing some music video treatments. And I really broke in with him with that. He saw that I had some ability, some talent, so he wanted to help me. And got me on movie sets as a PA, and I worked my way up. And one of the big ones, let's put it like this. I got my notes right here. I'm going to stick to my notes. And it was great. Right in. I was just thrown right into it right away. I remember I worked on Will Smith Miami video. And the director of that, a guy named Wayne Isham, had done the video for Metallica's Fuel. And I was just all about it. I just thought that was a great video because of the sound of the music and, give me fuel, give me fire. And you got the slow motion of the tire rubber bending and all that. I was like, dude, that was great shots. So we really hit it off talking about filmmaking. And it always helps to appeal to a filmmaker's ego when you want to befriend them and learn things. So he said, hey, you want to come to the edit of the video? I'm like, well, fuck yeah. I said, okay, am I allowed to? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I lived in Manhattan Beach, and the edit suite was in Santa Monica. So I had to ride my bike all the way from Manhattan Beach to Santa Monica because my car was broken down. My car was always broken down. I was a complete broke joke the entire time I lived out there, but I had the time of my life. It's a bit of a bike ride, too. Google map that, Manhattan Beach to Santa Monica, by taking the Strand and look at the path of what that is. So I bike all the way up there. It took a while. I was exhausted. But I get in there, and the producer's coming out of the edit suite, and she's like, hey, what are you doing here? And I was like, Wayne said it would be okay if I could come by to check out the edit. He invited me. And she was like, "Oh, not today. There's a bit of an issue." And at that moment, Wayne came out of the editing bay and he saw him and he stopped and he just was like, shoved his hand into his hair and just frustrated went, "The fucking AC put the film in backwards," and he just marched off. And the producer was like, and I looked at the producer, I was like, "Oh," and she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "All right, see you later." What that means is back then it was all film. We were working on film then. There was nobody was shooting on video yet for the videos. So it's 35 millimeter film. And if you're not familiar, there's an emulsion layer. And you got to have that face in a certain way when you're filming, or otherwise you're going to have some trouble. And that's what happened. And somehow I don't know how they fixed it, but they were able to use the footage. So I don't know what the process was or the technicals behind it. I just know when that happens, it's a bit of a problem. That was the thing of working with film. There were problems with it, and you'll see a few stories as we go along. So switching to digital has been just a blessing for everyone. But it was just crazy being around people like that. I remember, and you end up, they shoved me into working as a second AD on a lot of projects because what that job entails sometimes is working with the talent closely. And for whatever reason, I hit it off with the talent. And I always likened it to I never wanted anything from them. I just treated them the same. I wasn't trying to kiss their ass. I wasn't trying to get them to help me out in the industry. I was just doing my job. And so I think they appreciated the fact I just talked to them normal and, not even about music stuff, but just life. I was working on the Van Halen video, and it was for a song called Fire in the Hole. It was for Lethal Weapon 3. And it was Gary Sharon was the lead singer at the time, and they had the Van Halen 3 album coming out. And it was a very interesting shoot because Michael Anthony at one point just came over to me out of nowhere and just started chatting with me. We were just rapping for the longest time. And he was telling me some stories about, being in Van Halen, and I was telling him some stories about partying at the beach. And he was really honestly more interested in hearing about me partying at the beach. And it was more stories of that. And I guess he got relaxed. We were talking, and he just out of nowhere was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about actually, leaving and going down to Cabo and hooking up with Sammy and starting a band." And I just kind of looked at him and was like, "Are you leaving Van Halen?" He's like, "Yeah, sure. I was like, "Wow. Does anybody know that? Should you be telling me that?" And he's just kind of like, "Yeah, it's fine." I was like, "Oh, wow." And then, however many years later, Chickenfoot with Sammy Hagar. So just, I knew that was going to happen. I knew he was going to leave. But, I didn't really go around and shoot my mouth off about it or sell it to any kind of tabloids, which I probably could have. But I was just like, it's not who I am. It's the industry I'm working in. I'm not trying to spill everybody's stuff until now. What is it, 30 years later? Nobody cares now. I mean, they do, but they don't. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get in trouble. I hope not. But working with Van Halen was amazing because it was a band that I idolized as a kid, plain and simple. I remember being in 8th grade dance and these girls come up and go, "Vicky wants to dance with you," or whoever it was. And I was like, "Only if they play Van Halen," So it was a big deal to be on the Van Halen set. And I remember at one point, all the extras were behind me, and I was standing next to Alex Van Halen's drum kit, and he has a little hi-hat, and I was eating some gummy bears, and he hadn't gotten to his drums yet. And I took a gummy bear and I stuck it inside his hi-hat, and the extras behind me were snickering like, "What, are you crazy?" And I was like, "It'd be fine." So he comes over and he sits down, he's checking out his kit, getting ready to do a take, and he's hitting his hi-hat, and he's like, "What?" He was looking at it weird because it's not, really making the noise. I was like, Alex. And he looked down at me. He looked down at me. There was a look in him like, "Yes, what do you want, pauper?" And I just was like, I was playing, man. I said a little gummy bear right here. I was messing around. He just gave me this sort of raised eyebrow like, "Mm-hmm." Basically telling me, "Let's not let that happen again. It's going to be bad for you." Alex carried himself like that. He doesn't mean, he wasn't anything. There was an air about him of like, this guy feels like royalty. He's kind of a big guy. He's a little intimidating. But the most interesting part of that shoot, beyond finding out Michael Anthony was going to leave Van Halen, was I was in the dressing room with their manager, and I'm just standing there, I'm still pretty new in L.A., standing there in Van Halen's dressing room. I'm like, wow, this really accelerated. This escalated quickly. How did I get here? But what was funny is Alex and Eddie were sitting on this couch, and their manager standing next to me, and they were having a tiff about something. Somebody, whatever. It was like rumor talk. He said, she said. Cotton mouth. And it was just like, wow, this is amazing. This is like I'm watching Van Halen kind of be a little bit of a gossipy little sort of sewing circle type of thing. And it took me back a little bit. I was taken aback. I was very surprised. And I didn't say anything, and I walked out. Not that I'm talking bad about those guys. Who knows? It's just whatever. But it seemed to be a little drama going on. And I still love Van Halen, respect him with everything in the world. And Eddie Van Halen, rip, love him. We get in the elevator, and the manager turns to me, and he's like, "Do you want to manage Van Halen?" And I know he's being facetious, but I come back right at him with, that was the thing about me. I would always just snap back. I had no filter. I was like, as much fun as that sounds, I don't think so. A lot of drama there. I'm good. Thanks, though. Appreciate it. And he's like, yeah. Who was really nice was Gary Sharon. Gary Sharon was super nice. I chatted with him for a little bit. He was very excited. He was excited to be part of Van Halen. And I get it. He was an Extreme. Where was Extreme in like 97? Nowhere. Where was he? Nowhere. He was happy to be back. And, imagine getting that call. Hey, Gary. Hey, man, what's up? So Van Halen would like you to be their singer. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? But they only lasted for one album because that album wasn't great. But he was a great guy. The one last thing with them is when I was leaving the shoot, we were wrapping out, and I was walking by Eddie at the door, and I hadn't really said too much to Eddie, and I just at least wanted to interact with him for a minute, and he was talking to somebody, and I was like, Eddie? And he's like, yeah, man. I was like, when I was a kid, you broke my heart. And he looked at me like, I did? I was like, yeah, you married Valerie Bertinelli. And he just laughed and was like, looked at the guy he's talking to, and he's like, do you know how many people say that to me? I was like, hey, I hope I didn't overstep. I think you're great, man. It's been a real pleasure to work with you. And he was real cool. Hey, thanks, buddy. And we took a picture that I don't even know where it is anymore. But he was great. It was really a special thing to meet Eddie Van Halen. It really was. He was a great, great, great guy. Watching them work, having laughs, being on that set. I'm in that music video for Fire in the Hole. You'll never recognize me because there's a wall of people wearing like flame or welder masks, big welder masks. And I'm one of them right in the middle. So, there I was right there about to make it. But we're going to put a mask on you, buddy. That's right. After that shoot, we wrapped that night. And that night was the premiere of my buddy's movie. You're going to know my buddy director after I say this, but I'm still not going to say his name. But the movie, his movie premiere, set it off. And so I went up to Mann's Chinese Theater because that's where the premiere was. And I was just like, hey, to get in, just get in the crowd, see him, just give him a, fist bump and be like, hey, congrats, buddy. Because I was in jeans and a flannel. I wasn't trying to get in. I just was honestly wanted to say, hey, show me support, And so I get up and I shove my way up to the next to the red carpet. It's roped off, and there's a girl next to me, and she's like, look, give me a dirty look. And I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to get up here. I know the director. And she's like, sure you do. Whatever, loser. And I was just like, fucking mean, what? So my buddy comes along, and he sees me, and I was like, hey, man. He's like, hey, give him a hug. And I was like, hey, man, I'm so happy for you. And tells one of his buddies he's about to give me a ticket to go in. And the guy gives me a ticket, and the girl just looks at me that's next to me with these big wide eyes. And I'm holding the ticket up, and I'm like, he only had one. Sucks to be you. Next time, be nice. I just went in. And it was a great movie. And but the funniest part was at the after party, I am standing at the bar, and next to me is Sinbad. Like, I got my back a little bit to him. I'm kind of justified the other way, and he's just, just over to the side of my, left shoulder. And he's, right at the bar, and he's talking to Vivica A. Fox. All right, so I'm like, all right, it's pretty cool. And I'm just waiting for my drink. And what he's doing, though, once I pick up on it very quickly, he's kind of hitting on her, right? But she is not interested, and it finally at some point just walks away. And he's just there for a few moments by himself, and he just kind of, I caught him out of the corner of my eye, just kind of glancing around like, I kind of make sure nobody saw it, I guess, kind of thing. And he starts to turn my way, and I just whiplash turned away from him, was like, my mind's going, I need an adult. I am way out of my league. I cannot talk to Sinbad right now about him getting blown off by Vivica A. Fox. What would I even say? So about a week or two later, I'm working on the Babyface Stevie Wonder video that my director buddy is directing. My mentor is actually a producer, so he's there on set. We filmed it on the back lot of Paramount Studios. It was so cool. It was really, that's where I was, getting into the flow of working on the big productions, I was just like, wow, Will Smith, Van Halen, Babyface, Stevie Wonder, I'm on the studios. It was just, I was I was knee deep in it at that point. I was just loving life. It was everything I wanted to do at the level I wanted to work at. And I wasn't overwhelmed by it. I was in it. You know, when you're living something, you're in it, you're doing it. I was working hard. I was getting a good rep. And I'm working on this video, and I'm second AD again for Babyface, whatever he needs. Because Stevie Wonder had his own, a couple people that helped him. He didn't need anybody helping him. I did see Stevie Wonder. I met him very quickly, but I did see that I turned around at one point, and for whatever reason, he was talking to Sinbad. Sinbad had shown up just on set. I guess he was doing something close by on the lot, and I just, as soon as I saw him, I was like, my brain was like, go over and ask him what it was like to get blown off by Vivica A. Fox. And the other part of my brain's going, shut up, don't, no. I just immediately turned and walked the other way. I didn't even go around him. I didn't want to be tempted because I could sometimes I'll just be stupid just to see how people react. It's a bad trait. I don't really do it as much anymore whatsoever. But so I'm working on that, and we wrapped the shoot. And this is, again, the Babyface Stevie Wonder video. We're on the back lot of Paramount, and a couple of crew guys I know are like, hey, man, we're going to go on top of one of the, the buildings and smoke a J. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? Let's go. So what? And also a backlot in a movie studio. It's basically the fake city street, and you see the facade fronts, and it looks like a city, but behind it, it's just an empty structure. But they have roofs and stuff. So we go up, and we're sitting on the roof with half dozen crew members, just having a laugh, talking about the shoot, smoking a J. And my job on that shoot, one of them was to run the film, which means that after the shoot, I would have all the shot footage for the day on film to take over to the Valley to a company called Photochem that developed all the film in town. And the one interesting thing about that particular job on any production was there was quite a bit that the ACs, assistant cameras, would take the film. But there was also quite a few instances where the production assistant would take the film. And the thing is, an AC is somebody that's definitely been on a set a bit more, especially at that level, have a lot of experience, camera. A PA, you can have somebody that might have dropped out of school in the 5th grade. You're working on your set. Suddenly they've got, $50,000 worth of footage in their car. And if something happens to it, that's the day. It's insured, you get whatever, but you have to go out and do it all again. There is no backup. That's it. There were no hard drive backups of it. That's the film. And so that was my job on that one. Take the day of filming the Babyface Stevie Wonder footage, take it over to Photochem. First, I'm going to get high. Not exactly the world's greatest idea. But here's what happened. We're up there, getting high. And this one, I think it was a grip. He's like, hey, man, you got to take the footage over to Photochem. I'm like, yeah. I'm about to. And he's like, are you going to be all right? I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't get that high. Should be pretty good. And he's like, yeah, but I guess you didn't hear what happened on the Smashing Pumpkins video. And everybody stops and looks at him and goes, what the fuck happened on the Smashing Pumpkins video? And he's like, well, there was this PA. And he was the dude doing the film run. And he decides to stop at McDonald's and get a snack since he got high as shit before he left with the film. And for whatever fucking reason, he decides that he's going to go inside rather than go through the drive-thru. And also decide to leave his car unlocked. Came back out, all the film was gone. The whole one day of filming Smashing Pumpkins video was gone. I guess they reshot it. I don't really know the follow-up to any of it, but I was just like, okay, so that guy's just a fry cook in somewhere Idaho now for the rest of his life. But it was terrifying. Everyone was like, wow. I just looked at the guy and said, what the fuck are you telling me that story right now for? I've got to go do that, and I just got high. And he goes, you'll be all right, man. Listen, just remember, don't go to McDonald's. Everybody starts laughing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you're laughing. I got the film. I'm walking in my car. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm higher than I thought. Just hit me later. I get in the car, and I had a fucking beater at the time. And I'm driving over to the Valley, and I'm just like, I've got the film strapped in, literally buckled into the passenger seat because, this is probably at least a $50,000 day sitting in these cans. It's a decent drive. I mean, it's late at night, so there's not as much traffic, but I got the windows down. I'm just chewing gum, riding along, going, I'll never get high before I take film again. I'm completely paranoid. I'm all the way in the right lane. I'm one step away from riding around with my hazards on. White knuckling the steering wheel. So by the grace of all the angels, I make it to photo chem, sit in the parking lot for a couple of seconds, catch my breath after the mini heart attack of driving there. And I walk in. And when you go there, you could drop off the film, or there was a line to get film, to pick up processed film. So there's always a line for that. And so I get there, and I've got the film in my hands, a nice big stack of it, holding my arms as far as I can down, coming up to my chin. But it's all taped up. All the canisters are taped up. The paperwork with it's taped on it, everything. You don't have to do anything. You're just idiot delivery guy. They gave me this and told me to bring it to you. There's no responsibility outside of that. But somehow that always turns into a bit of a task. So I'm standing in line, and the guy behind the counter, it just kind of leans out a little and sees me, and he's like, "Are you dropping off?" And, had to do a little stoner like, "Yeah. You can just set that down over here." Immediately my brain is like, "Hey, you stupid stoned dumbass. Go put the film down and go home." I walk up there and I just put it down, and he looks over and looks up at me and can obviously tell that I am baked out of my mind. And he just smiles and goes, "You didn't stop at McDonald's, did you?"